My name is Ethan Walker, and this is the story of the last message I ever received from my father. I was 28 years old and living in Boston, working long hours at a financial consulting firm that had become the center of my life. Every morning looked the same. I woke up before sunrise, rushed through breakfast, answered emails during my commute, and convinced myself that all the sacrifices would eventually be worth it. Family dinners became rare, holidays turned into optional events, and phone calls with loved ones were often postponed for another day. I believed I was building a successful future, but I never stopped to ask myself what I was leaving behind in the process. Everything changed on a rainy Tuesday morning when my phone rang just as I was preparing to leave for work. The caller ID showed the name of my father's neighbor, Mr. Jenkins. I almost ignored the call because I was already running late, but something in my heart told me to answer. The moment I heard his voice, I knew something was terribly wrong. "Ethan," he said quietly, "you need to come home. It's about your father." My body went numb. My father and I hadn't spoken in nearly 8 months. Our last conversation had ended in anger, fueled by years of misunderstanding and disappointment. He thought I cared too much about money and status. I thought he didn't respect my ambitions or understand the pressure I carried. Neither of us apologized. We both waited for the other person to take the first step, assuming there would always be more time. I drove back to my hometown in Connecticut with the sound of rain hitting my windshield and memories flooding my mind. I remembered my father teaching me how to ride a bicycle on our quiet neighborhood street. I remembered him staying up late to help me build a model airplane for a school project. I remembered his loud cheers from the bleachers during my baseball games and the way he smiled when I graduated from college. Somewhere along the way, those memories had been buried beneath stress, pride, and resentment. When I finally pulled into the driveway of my childhood home, everything looked exactly as I had left it years before. The porch swing still creaked in the wind, the old mailbox leaned slightly to one side, and the oak tree in the front yard stood tall and familiar. But the person who had made that house feel like home was gone. Mr. Jenkins met me at the front door. His eyes were filled with sympathy as he handed me a small envelope with my name written across the front in my father's handwriting. "He wanted you to have this," he said. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside was a folded letter and a small voice recorder. Taking a deep breath, I pressed the play button. The room filled with my father's voice. "Hey, Ethan. If you're hearing this, it means I didn't get the chance to tell you these things in person." I froze. For a brief moment, it felt as though he was sitting beside me.
"I know we haven't talked much lately," he continued, "and I know both of us can be stubborn, but I need you to know something. I have always been proud of you. I may not have understood every decision you've made, but I never stopped believing in the man you've become." Tears rolled down my face as I listened. He spoke about how success meant little if it came at the cost of the people who mattered most. He admitted his own mistakes and wished he had reached out sooner. Then his voice softened. "Don't wait to fix broken relationships, son. Don't assume you'll always have more time. Tell people you love them while they're still here to hear it." Those words shattered something inside me. I thought about every missed call from my mother, every holiday gathering I had skipped, every excuse I had made because work seemed more important. The truth was painful. Life had given me countless opportunities to reconnect, and I had wasted them, believing tomorrow was guaranteed.
As the recording continued, my father asked me to promise him a few things. He told me to be kind, to forgive quickly, to take chances, and to never be afraid of starting over when life didn't go according to plan. Then, with a small laugh, he added, "And for the record, son, I never really liked those expensive suits you wore, but I loved how confident they made you feel." I smiled through my tears, because that sounded exactly like him. Before the message ended, he said the words I had longed to hear for months. "I love you, Ethan."
I always have, and I always will. When the recording stopped, silence filled the room. Yet somehow, I no longer felt alone. Inside the envelope, I found one more item, a small silver key. Unsure of what it unlocked, I searched the house until I remembered the old wooden desk in my father's bedroom. The key opened the bottom drawer. Inside was a worn leather journal. On the first page, my father had written my name. I spent the rest of the day reading his entries. He had written about ordinary moments in his life, but many pages were devoted to me. He celebrated my promotions, worried about my health, and wondered whether I was happy. Even during the months we weren't speaking, he had never stopped thinking about me. One entry, written just weeks before his death, read, "I miss my son. Maybe we're both too proud, but life is too short for silence." I had to close the journal and wipe away my tears, because I finally understood how much unnecessary time we had lost. Near the end of the journal, I discovered a handwritten list titled, "Things I Hope Ethan Does Someday." The list included visiting Italy, learning to cook something other than pasta, falling in love with someone who made him laugh every day, working less, and simply being happy. I laughed for the first time since arriving home. Even in his final days, my father had managed to leave behind encouragement wrapped in humor. The next morning, I visited the cemetery.
Standing beside his grave beneath a clear blue sky, I said all the things I had been too stubborn to say before. I apologized. I thanked him. I told him I loved him. The words came too late for him to hear, but I needed to say them anyway. Over the following months, I slowly began changing my life. I called my mother every week. I reached out to old friends I had drifted away from. I stopped measuring my worth by promotions and paychecks. I started making time for people instead of fitting them into whatever space remained after work. 1 year later, I fulfilled one of the dreams on my father's list and traveled to Italy. Sitting at a small cafe in Rome, I opened his journal to a random page. The words I found felt like another conversation with him. "Life moves fast," he had written. "Don't wait for perfect conditions. The perfect moment is often the one you're living right now." I looked around at the bustling streets, the laughter of strangers, and the beauty of the ordinary moment before me. For the first time in years, I felt truly present. When I returned home, I framed one sentence from my father's final message and hung it above my desk. "Tell people you love them while they're still here to hear it." Every morning, those words remind me of what truly matters. Years have passed since I lost my father.
The grief never disappeared completely, but it changed. Sadness became gratitude. Regret became wisdom. Loss became a reminder to live differently. When people ask me about the last message from my father, I tell them it wasn't really about death. It was about life. It was about choosing love over pride, forgiveness over anger, and connection over distance. His final message didn't just help me survive losing him, it taught me how to live. If there's someone you've been meaning to call them. If there's someone you need to forgive them. If there's someone you love, Tell them today. Tomorrow is never promised. Sometimes the smallest message can change the course of an entire life. The last message from my father wasn't simply a goodbye. It was the greatest lesson he ever gave me, and I carry it with me every single day.